Action.
Good morning.
All right. Good morning.
I just wanted you to know that before we begin, I'm slightly nervous. And
Why?
I very rarely, well, because this is a formal process and this is one of the first times that,
We're doing it.
well, you're taking the lead. So go ahead.
Well, let's start at the beginning. Today is Thursday,
You might be blocking.
March 6, 2025. It might be actually a little bit later than this right now because we started a little later. This is the case where everything is getting filed.
Okay.
This is Dan Reese's bankruptcy case. This is a court of equity. This is where we are.
$100 million in claims. My claims. My debts are less than $1 million. So it's very important for everyone to understand that my equity and my cash and my assets far outweigh
Correct.
the actual liabilities.
Correct.
So for anyone that's concerned, bankruptcy is nothing more than a word. It's almost like it's a cancer of the genitalia, and its end result is a giant member. And
On that note.
and the reason
Moving
why-
on.
moving on.
So we are going to be doing two things. We are going to be objecting to two motions that were brought up, and our responsibility as taking this to video is going to be going through each thing step by step and presenting it to the court one by one with an affidavit from you.
Okay, that seems pretty logical.
Yeah.
Without further ado. would
So
you
the
like to
first thing
begin?
we're going to do is our objection to claims by Brian Lustig in the purported class.
All right.
So Brian, they have claimed in your case that they are owed X amount of dollars.
The plaintiff.
Correct.
Okay.
So it is our responsibility to say why this, you are not responsible for this.
Okay.
And so we have a couple of bullet points we're going to go through.
Okay.
One is their lack of standing.
Okay.
Daniel M. Reeses has never been the owner of Daniel Marcus Inc. DBA Perfect Pond.
Okay.
Period. Please respond.
All right, well, that's a pretty self-explanatory question and answer, but in general, I would have to say that my mother, Margarita Reeses, was the owner, and for anyone at home that doesn't know who Brian Lustig is, please check out Judge Judy Pawn Shop Shocker episode, and one of the reasons why this class action lawsuit is so painful for myself is because I held Brian Lustig, as well as the other people that are frivolously claiming allegations against me, at a very high esteem. I cared for these people to a point where I was even willing to go on national television with Brian Lustig and to show the world that this is my representation, this is my representative. For lack of a better word, it's almost like a partnership in the business aspect. Because Brian Lustig and I were employees of a corporation. And I have perpetrated myself as the owner only for the purposes of a public image and a marketing platform, where I basically treated the business like I owned it, because my mother and I had a verbal agreement for my entire life that upon retirement, I would receive the fruits of my own labor. It sounds pretty comical, but if you think about the actual reality, there's nothing wrong with managing a business on behalf of your family and keeping the assets in the matriarch's name, because that is a due right and respect from the culture that I come from. The culture that I come from is Russia, and in Russia, you're really taught to respect your elders to a point where you go above and beyond the call of duty. And here in this case is a perfect example of me being punished for being an extremely dedicated employee of my mother's company. And because of my dedication and commitment, the fact that I never owned 1% of the corporation at any time in my life really goes to speak volumes as to the validity of a claim, because not only do I not own Daniel Marcus Inc., nor have I owned it, nor should I be legally responsible for any of this, because I am a victim just like the other employees of my mother's actions. But the very notion that the first bankruptcy actually indicated, with the first creditor being PB Financing, making bold allegations like my mother has left the country,
we're
absconded.
moving on to that next.
It's not that, Jamie. It's just that in the next person that went, they said, we have a settlement agreement with Margarita Reeses with an attorney on file. So the real question is, where the hell is my mother, and why am I being in a defensive position and on YouTube having to defend constantly my back against the wall when I am not only not the owner of the company, I have never pretended in any legal filings that I am the owner of Daniel Marcus Inc. Perfect Pawn. My story is consistent, and it's also consistent with thousands of cases where human beings like myself who are dedicated and committed to a corporation are used as a fall guy. That's all that I am, is the fall guy. And if you like movies, well, that's great, because there may be a movie called The Fall Guy that may have something to do with making movies, I don't know. And essentially, the reason why I'm saying this is because this is the simplest thing that you can possibly say in one sentence. I am not, nor have I ever been the owner of the corporation that I'm being accused of as being the leader of, but I was a manager of this corporation, but that doesn't have, there's no legal standing that I should be responsible for the fraudulent actions of the other parties that are the owners of the corporation. Because I want to remind everyone that had the circumstances been different, the corporation could have easily settled whatever claims any former employees had because we were extremely profitable and solvent as a corporation, other than the theft that was going on internally by several employees who had used the courts and the general suppression of my voice as really the fuel to propel frivolous litigation against me. Have I answered the question?
Yes, you answered the question. So let's discuss another reason why we are objecting to this is because of the undisclosed settlement agreement.
Okay, so when we talk about the actual validity of what is owed versus what's not owed, the bankruptcy court is very interested in seeing what is the ratio between how much Lustig and claimants think that Resus owes versus how much it was settled for. Because essentially, the settlement amount would really be the matrices, like the stepping stone, the cookie cutter, I'm at a loss of words, but it would be I don't know what the legal term for it would be, but it would be a standing. That's what it would be. It would be a standing. It would be a legal standing, and it would be an indication to the courts of what is the validity and the amount that is appropriate to really discuss.
And that's really the black
and that's
and white.
only if I am found guilty in some right of not being a victim of fraud, because the corporation owes me cash, $800,000 in former salary, as well as millions in bonuses, as well as $100 million.
Not only is the settlement agreement not being disclosed to you.
Right.
Obviously, if Margarita Resus was participating in a settlement agreement, she would have a lawyer or a representative or someone. So she can't be actually on the lam or evading service in other cases.
She has two lawyers.
Right. So it just proves the point.
Why hasn't anyone asked her lawyer to produce her? Her lawyer should have immediately been asked to produce your client and to answer the allegations that are brought before her. I don't understand.
Obviously, the terms of also the settlement agreement are
kept secret,
highly
confidential.
Confidential because you're not even.
I'm not even. Nobody even. It's like I'm not part of the case when something happens that's normal or positive. But everyone dumps everything on me, and I want to remind everyone that the Lustig case is not even certified. And it wasn't certified during the majority of anything that was able to be done that is adverse to me. So what they were, and not to mention the fact that the main lawyer for the case is the brother-in-law of Brian Lustig, which is not only a clear conflict, but family can represent family. I've had my family represent me. I am not going to say that they're not allowed to represent. But to go above and beyond and break your code of ethics as an attorney.
They've broken so many code of ethics during the entire case, and then the lawyer in the last hearing broke code of ethics by saying, going after you, lying, saying that you're owed this whole amount, but he never disclosed
that there was a settlement. Not only that, he didn't even. He said that the settlement agreement is only between Oleg and them.
He said he'd have to go back and check and see if that's
right. But he was on the Zoom call.
Exactly.
And it's only laughable.
All
right, so let's go ahead and stick to the facts instead of laughing at the insanity of what's going on. All right?
Yes. The fraudulent and frivolous litigation against you, in this case number
Okay,
And there's a stay in that case by Judge Martini, who ruled that the bankruptcy court needs to proceed.
right.
And
So I guess what they're trying to do is end that in a bankruptcy manner, saying like, oh, we don't want to go in federal court that actually wants to hear Daniel. We want to go to a court where no one listens to what Daniel says, and we're able to get away with lying in it. Okay, that makes, I don't disagree with them. If I was going against someone who has a public YouTube channel, that they're willing to go so far to prove their case that they're willing to show the entire world and give them a chance to download the videos and then use those videos against me. Meaning that if someone actually wanted to, they can use the videos against me,
Right.
but except it's one of those guns that, like, you ever see cartoon where like you have a gun with the barrel that's pointing at yourself? Now, these videos are really designed for people to use them against me. And no one has really bitten the bait on that one because it's really very evident, because essentially what anyone going against me in an adverse legal proceeding has to do is give me a chance to defend myself. And my entire offense is based on defense. So if you like sports, just imagine that rather than having cornerbacks and defensive ends, my entire defense is based on wide receivers and tight ends, nothing more, because my only goal is to pick six. And I have on offense complete psychopaths that are just designed to ruin their defense. So when you have that type of strategy going on, unless you're a fan of sports, you really don't understand that anyone that chooses to frame me or go against me by breaking the law is doing nothing more than what I expect them to do and what this is designed for, in order to prove my case exponentially far and beyond the need. And the burden of proof will be immediately lifted off of me once the victimization of my life and my professional life become publicized via some sort of an invented criminal act going against me. Does that make any sense?
yes, so for the following reasons that you just said, you believe that the motion should be, their claim should not be, you object to them, they should be thrown out, and they're premature, and we should see it. We need to see a copy of
But
the
there's
settlement
oral
agreement.
arguments that we're requesting with this as well, correct?
Yes.
And at that point, I can mention case law and things like that, right?
Absolutely.
All right, now, do you feel that we should submit case law that supports my position in this video in writing prior to this? You know what? Let's go one at a time.
For a lot of
Yeah,
cases,
so like, please understand that this is the first time in
this
human
is a
history.
WIP. This is a work in progress.
Right, this is the first time in human history where one human being, and I appreciate that you're helping me out. It really is a big plus. It's not something that is that I ever thought I'd be able to have the assistance of a logical, legal-minded professional. And sometimes in personal arguments, I get really frustrated with you because you're so good at emulating attorneys because of your years of interacting with them.
That's all I'm gonna say about that.
And essentially, I believe that it's very important for everyone to know that I don't know everything. And when I say that is, I would love for the courts to be interactive in this process, allow for the camera to be put into the courtroom so that we don't hide behind the shroud of secrecy and show the world exactly what's going on. I mean, Congress and public hearings are some of the most important legal matters. So any legal matter that goes in front of the Supreme Court is videotaped. And not every legal matter, because I don't know everything about it, but I'm pretty sure the majority of the biggest cases are videotaped and
Everything's
public
today.
Right. So my bankruptcy, although it's being taped, I am prevented from bringing in any recording devices. And the reason for that is the same reason as why I'm here on YouTube, is because it's atrocious to think that there is no negligence from the court officers, who are the very same court officers that I have to make this oral argument in front of, that were negligent in allowing my first filing of Chapter 7 for all of this, because this is old news. This is stuff that really was around 2 years ago.
It really is.
And it's extremely for everyone to understand that it's not me that's redundant. I did everything correct. I filed in good faith with hundreds of millions of dollars in actual adjudicatable claims that were not only ignored, but were systemically suppressed for a few $1 million. And that few $1 million was very important because that allowed me to hire the attorneys and claw back all of my claims properly while Senator Menendez, Fred Davies, and everybody else was being brought up on criminal charges, proving my case in full. But none of that was able to happen due to the sheer negligence over the stupidity of the people, the attorneys and the trustee that went against me, that simply saw me as nothing more than a money grab. A human being that, oh, no one's going to believe Rhesus, he'll never get the Davies conviction. That'll never happen. You know, as long as that doesn't happen, I'm just a crazy guy that's screaming, hey, you know, there's a guy, he's convicted of bank fraud. But anyways, let's go ahead and see, this is why these videos are so important, because in a court, I would be interrupted in a very rude manner, and it would really cause me to sway away from. True. And you can just nicely say to me, hey, Daniel, focus on the job.
We need to wrap this one up, this submission.
Okay.
And I think that as far as citing any legal cases, yeah,
I also think it's important for them to cite legal cases where a human being is allowed to be defrauded and then held liable for.
Right.
I think that it's really important for everyone to understand that one of the reasons why I'm so arrogant. I'm so arrogant about it is because I've never seen a case in my entire life where a human being is literally defrauded and then the government turns around and said, you know what, we know you're a victim of the crime, we know that these people have no merit, we know that all these things happen, but you know, unfortunately, they kind of, you know, the court was really looking the other way, and they got a couple of court orders against you. So unfortunately, there's nothing we can really do at this point. We recognize you're a victim, Mr. Rhesus. It's just we as federal judges, you know, we're limitless in our powers. Give me a fucking break, okay?
All right, let's stay on target. Let's finish this up. Let's wrap it up.
All right, any other questions?
And we'll move on to the next one.
Sure, any other questions? Listen, I just wanted to say I'm really sorry. I know I could do a better job on the next one. I think that I'm personally really excited. I'm really, really excited that the thousands of letters and motions that I've filed over the last half a decade are going to be whittling down to nothing more than basic communications, and really the judges, the courts, and everyone needs to see that this is the way of the future. We live in a digital world where suppression of the truth can really backfire on you, as you see with the Democratic Party and everything that has happened on a national stage, where any attempts to silence freedom of speech and the actual human voice when it comes to speaking the truth will really be met with harsh ramifications. Because the fact of the matter is that there's a huge difference between spewing nonsensical, regurgitated, hate-mongering speeches and having relevant content that is really important for anyone who's in law school or finding themselves as an entrepreneur. Because essentially, part of my job as an entrepreneur is being responsible. So I can't just be responsible for the billions of dollars that the corporations that are behind me will generate in due course. I need to be responsible for all assets of anything, all aspects of anything that I touch. And this part, no one talks about in business school, is what do you do when shit hits the fan? How do you handle yourself when your back is so against the wall that you only have two options? Either go through the wall or give up. And unfortunately, I myself will use this platform to finalize this video by saying that I would rather die fighting than live in defeat. And that is just simply who I am as a human being. I am not trying to hurt anyone. At no time did I perpetrate any of these crimes. I am simply nothing more than a human being who you really shouldn't mess with, because he is just not someone who is interested in being bullied, nor will I give you the satisfaction of ever having an inch of getting one over me, because I have a job to do, which is to protect my children, disseminate truthful content, release some of the greatest secrets in American history that have been plaguing the minds of hundreds of millions of Americans that actually care about the truth, and start the logic revolution. Eventually, a cure will be presented, as well as the concept of digital consciousness. But before I do that, think of this as me brushing my teeth in the morning. I cannot even brush my teeth in the morning at this point. We only have 1 minute left? Oh, man, it really felt good to be able to get that off my chest.
Good, I'm so glad. Let's cut and let's go to the next one.
Hey, man, this is why she's the best in the business. Gotta run.